Yeah, so back then we experienced all our peers during the school days who have purple marks on their skin, which are the iodine, right? Iodine they call it.
Oh yes, yes.
Whenever it's ugly, so what I did was I always try to prevent myself from being scratched because I don't want to look purple in parts of my body.
Yeah. The yellow and the purple ointment,
Yeah,
right? Yes.
yeah, it just looks quite gross. So in turn, I try to be more careful. Then that's how I got all those skills in sports. I don't really fall as much and get nasty injuries. It's because
Mm.
I think it's because of aesthetic needs. Yeah, I don't want to look ugly.
Or vanity.
Yeah. Vanity. Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Singapore again. I've
Mm.
experienced people who have come to me and say, I don't eat vegetables. And then,
Mm.
many years later, when I started the cafe business, I realized that dark leafy green vegetables provides quite a bit of calcium
Oh
for
yes.
stronger bones, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we were taught that drinking milk, especially cow's milk, will help us.
Mm.
So
Mm.
maybe you can explain it in a way that doesn't scare the listeners, but
Yeah, right. Because
and
it's a
provide
big topic for
alternatives.
me.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's
Yeah.
talk about that. I mean, how do you encourage people to eat more dark leafy green vegetables for the calcium of their bones, and
Mm.
kind of like get alternatives for milk?
Mm. So I mean, it's no secret, right? Like especially in the last couple of years, I think this whole uh alternative to milk industry has really boomed, right? In terms of like almond milk. Now if you go to any, I think proper supermarket, a bigger one, you'll see like shelves of like hazelnut, quinoa milk, and what's not, right? So if there is that increased supply, there must somehow be an increased demand for it, right? So more and more people seem to be seeking out these alternatives, and I'm glad because I will be honest. When it comes to milk, it is one of the things where I think it has, kind of like been inculcated into our minds that we need to drink lots and lots of cow's milk in order to build strong bones. And the more recent research is showing that, in fact, not only is this not necessarily true, but countries that actually have very high milk consumption are also showing up as being those that have higher risk for bone fractures. And it is not surprising since cow's milk or any sort of cow's milk dairy, like things like cheese, cream, is actually very acidifying to the body. So what that means is that the body starts to leach out more of your alkaline type minerals, things like your calcium, magnesium, from your tissues, for example, bone, and bring it into the blood, right, to help buffer the acidity. And in that sense, I can see why that would potentially increase, the risk of osteoporosis and also then bone fractures eventually. So I think there is that need to kind of reassess for yourself. Is there really that need to drink a lot of cow's milk if you are doing so? Yeah, especially if you think you are doing it for the benefit of your bone. And you're right. To say that there are in fact better alternatives, I think. So if you were looking to increase bone mass or at least retain your current bone mass, then an alkaline diet is very important. And some other alternatives to increasing calcium intake will be things like your dark green leafy vegetables, even like fish. Yeah. So when it comes to dark green leafy vegetables, if you're the sort that doesn't like to take a lot of it in terms of the actual vegetables, I think one of the easy ways would be to use your the green powders these days. Yeah, so like for example, I myself, I use something from New Zest, this brand called New Zest, right? They do this clean clean green powder, and it's like a blend of, I think, 70 over different ingredients. Yeah, so something like that would really quickly help alkalize the body. And on the note of green leafy veg, right? I just wanted to point out as well, because some people tell me that they do a lot of like juicing. So then when I ask people, okay, so when you say you do a lot of juicing, right? And you're using like all your typical vegetables, are you kind of like buying organic? Because that's one of the things to keep in mind, right? that if you were to take a lot of these raw kind of vegetables, which is a good thing, especially for juicing and health benefits, one thing to consider is, are you sure you're taking the form that doesn't have a lot of additives added to it? So what I mean by that are things like your pesticides, right? Because I think you would be familiar with the EWG's Dirty Dozen list, which they publish every year based
Yeah.
on the top 12 produce that are most heavily sprayed, right, with pesticides. And my concern is that a lot of these uh, vegetables that feature on that list, things like your spinach, kale, are often also those that a lot of people use for juicing. So I kind of just highlight to people, if you are using it for juicing, then make sure that you try as much as possible to get organic, because if not, you are probably actually eating a lot of this sort of pesticides unknowns to you, since you're eating that much more than maybe an average person. And if you can't really afford to go down that route of using a lot of organic vegetables for juicing, then yeah, sometimes some of these like green powders might be an alternative, I would say.
Wow, it's so good that you highlighted that, because I've learned it from my ex-partner in the first
Mm,
cafe. So I
mm,
named her a holistic chef, and she taught me a lot about these things which you mentioned.
mm.
Um, it's so true, right? Things like even strawberries, the things we like, garlic,
Strawberries are
broccoli,
the worst. They are the number one on that Dirty Dozen
exactly
list.
one of the
Yeah.
highest, right? So
Yes.
although it's got so many good properties for health,
Mm,
again,
mm.
it's the choice that we make. And again, pause, right? Like you say, you have to pause and really think about it. Doesn't mean if it's a strawberry, it's a strawberry. So the
Yeah. Unfortunately, these days, yeah, no longer that. Yeah.
so true. The discussion I always ask people is, that the salad that you're eating now, it's not the salad that we've been eating 10 years ago. Yeah,
Mm, mm,
industries
mm,
change, demand and supply
mm.
change, and there are a lot of greedy um, companies that,
Opportunists. Yeah.
yeah, that just want to create something that looks very similar, but you don't know what goes into them. So it's a very good
Mm,
highlight, Tiffany, that you mentioned
mm.
this. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people need to be aware of what they eat, not just by its look, but also where it's been sourced from.
Mm, mm.
And again,
So
it's so
yeah.
easy to get information, right, online.
Yeah.
They really want
Yes.
to dig deep.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just gonna say, like, in fact, since the 1950s, 85,000 different chemicals has been introduced into the environment, and of course, a lot of this is finding itself into our bodies through the way of food, water that we drink, even the air that we breathe in, right? So, unfortunately, it is quite if you are living in any sort of like a modern industrialized country like Singapore, then yeah, unfortunately, I think the amount of toxins that we are coming into contact with would be much higher than somebody who lived, yeah, literally 100 years ago only. So, and what does that impact have on our bodies, and what choices can we make in order to reduce the impact? Yeah, I think goes a long way towards just keeping diseases at bay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. The modern day
Mm.
diseases, right? Um,
Mm.
eh, when I'm 55 or even 60, and I feel that my body's more vulnerable and sensitive to all these things that you just mentioned,
Mm.
my plan is to get out and live in a country where it's very kampong environment, where you can find the foods that are fresh from the farm. They call it the farm to the
Mm.
table concept.
Mm. Mm.
Because as much as I love Singapore, everything here is pretty much imported. Although there are efforts that are being made, people are trying to grow things here locally, but it doesn't support the majority of our needs, right? So it's only like 10% of the population is being supported by, no matter how big the farms are.
Mm. Mm.
But that's my plan. My plan is to reverse everything. I change my environment when I get old, because I
Yeah, yeah.
really think that just eating from nature is so much safer than eating from a man-produced source.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, and I don't want to die sick.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't mind dying in my sleep peacefully, but I don't want to suffer for 10 years be in so much pain when you're old, and then you end up dying in pain. That's not the way to live, you know.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's what a lot of people have in mind, right? That is not a it's not about dying, but yeah, falling sick. Yeah, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier, like, depending on what sickness you have, you end up also, I think, causing a lot of burden to your family members and your loved ones as well, right? Because they also have to kind of like not just support you physically, but it also pains your family members to have to see you go through that process. So yeah, I think like these days I think to myself, like, one of the greatest gifts I can give my children is to take care of myself, so that in old age, right, I do not become a burden to
Yeah, that's
that
so
that is
true.
something to think about. Mm, mm,
So
yeah.
so true. I always believe that the greatest commodity in any human being is time.
Mm, mm,
Whether it's relate to wealth, or it relates to happiness, or it relates to food choices, or health. Everybody cannot win back time.
mm.
And if you don't invest in the right time with the right things, and then the choices you made can depict your own future, right? So
Mm.
that's why
Yeah.
people like us in our 40s, we've been there, we've done that. That's why we want to share our knowledge and our experiences with the people that are listening here. Ah, so okay, Tiffany, in Singapore, right?
Mhm.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't know that there are places that they can find better ingredients. Personally, for me, I've been to Eat Organic, I've been to Brown Rice Paradise, and I've been to Super Nature for certain ingredients that I like. Like
Mhm.
if I want a organic turkey bacon, I went to Super Nature before, down at Orchard Boulevard or something. So for those people who wanna, just invest a little bit more in their dollars into foods that really are pretty safe for them to consume, where are some
Mm.
of the other places that they can start going to and discover?
Okay. So like for myself, I think one of the places that has been very underrated is Mahota. Are you familiar with Mahota?
No, not at all.
Really? So it's
No, no.
easy.
What happened to me?
There's like the Whole Foods, right?
Mahota. Okay, sound now you
Yeah.
mention it, it sounds familiar, but when did
Yeah.
they
So
start?
I'm quite surprised because okay, Mahota is founded by the same people who owns the whole Primark chain, but the one
Okay.
yeah, but it's different in the sense that at Mahota they kind of like, yeah, bring in like your better quality foods, your organic type foods, and I've found that when I compare them to other places, they are quite a lot more affordable. So, and
Wow.
clients that I've sent to also tell me that in terms of like the meats and things like your grass fed meats and things like that are also much cheaper there. And it's quite centrally located at Lavender, and it actually takes up
Oh,
an entire level, and it's a one-stop shop in the sense that they have also restaurant, like healthy eating restaurant. They have like the supermarket area, and they also have, in fact, previously I did workshops there as well, like a workshop area and even a TCM clinic.
mm,
So they, well, not this period, but prior to COVID-19, right? They were having a lot of like health and wellness type events and things there. So it takes up an entire floor of the building. And then what I was told was that a lot of how they keep it so cheap is because they have their own organic farms overseas, and even wineries. So they actually have their own organic wine because they own wineries overseas, and hence they are able to supply bring in the supplies at a much cheaper rate. So that's something to, yeah, maybe look at.
okay. So
Mm.
actually, I have been to Mahota, but I
Oh,
didn't
you
know it's
have?
called Mahota. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
lavender, top floor, beautifully
Right.
decorated
Yes,
supermarket. You feel so
yes,
relaxed when you're there.
yes, yes,
It covers a whole circle of the floor, and
yes.
I think what we can do is on the show is we'll put in some of the links of these places that people can reach out to, besides yours as well, um,
Okay, thank
so that
you.
at least people can really look at what are the alternatives they can eat if they have
Mm,
additional funds that they can invest in if they really want to take care of their health when it comes to eating better, right? And of
yes,
course,
yes.
we shouldn't discount places like Sheng Siong, NTUC, and Cold Storage because they do have
Mm,
a fair range of better quality ingredients as well.
yes, yes. In fact, right downstairs from my place here is like a Sheng Siong. So yeah, I often go there. Yeah.
Yeah, you saw my post with the cage-free eggs, right, from Australia, Sheng Siong.
Oh yes,
It's
yes,
so
you're right.
interesting.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
interesting.
nowadays, even like Sheng Siong also brings in all your alternate milks, as we've mentioned. I always buy my almond milk from downstairs.
Yeah, so on a business level, we should approach all these supermarkets and give them a shout out and get paid for in the future. With 3
Yeah.
million reach, okay.
Mm.
Question that I think many Singaporeans would like to ask is what are some of the foods that us Singaporeans think that is good for us to consume, but are actually not? Can you maybe highlight three foods or ingredients that they think is good for them, uh, with the exception of the milk out, because we talked about milk already, right?
Mm-mm.
What are the things they think that are good for them that they're consuming on a daily, weekly basis, but actually it's not good for them?
Okay. I mean, so you're saying things that are deceptive, right? So I won't even bother to mention things that are obvious, right? Like things like ice cream and cakes, because
Yeah,
those are
we know
unhealthy, but
already.
yeah, but you choose to eat it for other reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for example, one thing, and I will just say this from my example with my own clients, okay, things that I have had to do this exactly the same discussion. Yeah, so things like oils. So a lot of
Mm,
people have been sort of like made to think that vegetable oils are a good choice because they are so-called cholesterol free, right? Things like your sunflower, canola oil, soybean oils. So I'm just gonna say that okay, what I'm doing here is just to share information. It's up to you to go and do further research and reach your own conclusions. So you know just to put it out there that that when it comes to this sort of oils, in fact, their heating point is not high enough to support the sort of like the heat where we do uh, like cooking. So I would say this sort of oils, in fact, are those that you should throw out and replace with oils with higher heating points. So things like coconut oil and things that we were told that was unhealthy for us is not found to be true, right? Like found to be healthy. So like your ghee, your duck fat, all our traditional fats, your lard. In the past we are told like, oh, these are so unhealthy because they are filled with cholesterol.
yeah.
So yeah, the recent research has already debunked that whole cholesterol myth, right? That in fact these oils are much safer to use when it comes to cooking and yeah, high boiling points. Yeah, have higher boiling points. So that is one. The other thing, kind of in line with this, is the whole eggs myth
Mm.
again. So which comes back to cholesterol, because I see a lot of people like when they eat their eggs, they still take out the egg yolk,
The
and
yolk,
I ask
yeah,
them,
the
hey, why are you not eating the egg yolks? Is it because you don't like it?
cholesterol.
And yes, they still say, oh, because
High
yeah, I
cholesterol.
was told that I cannot eat too much egg yolks because my cholesterol is on the high side, and I'm like, it has already been debunked. So if you enjoy your eggs, please, eat your egg yolks freely. And in fact, the egg yolks are the part that has a lot of your nutrients, right? Like
Nutrients,
your
yeah.
biotin and all of that. So yeah, it's like, if you love your eggs whole, please enjoy it, not just have your egg whites. Yeah. And then the other thing, which I think is really very uh, misunderstood, especially when it comes to children, are things like your cereals, your so-called cereal bars, because what's insidious about it is the way they are marketed. They are marketed as health foods, right? A lot of
Yeah.
this are so-called like breakfast options. But the thing is that when you turn around and look at the actual information panel, you'll see that a lot of them is very
Sugar.
high in sugar. And
Mhm.
along with this, actually on the same note, right, are things like your low fat yogurts, low fat, a lot of these processed foods, right? How the manufacturers actually make them, taste good whilst reducing fat is to actually pump in a lot of sugar. So these things I think are, yeah, they are so deceptive when it comes to the way they are marketed, that people might think that they are doing themselves a whole lot of good by eating more of it, when in fact they are probably not not doing themselves that much good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. So, guys, those who are
Mm.
listening, you definitely need some form of advice from experts like Tiffany. She has a wealth of knowledge to share with you, and a lot more, and a lot more. So, for me personally, I don't take any of those oils you mentioned. I've
Mm.
given them up many years ago.
Mm.
I don't eat those crazy cereals, I call it, because I know what's at the back, and the
Mm.
tons of sugar that it
Mm.
compensates with.
Mm.
And I
And in fact,
also,
sorry to say, but like,
yeah.
for the kids one, right? Okay, I don't want to name brands here, but those that are artificially colored, to make it more like a
Colorings.
like more appetizing to kids, right? Those in fact are even more toxic because of all these unnatural like additives and preservatives. So I would say, please, whilst they're touted as being like beneficial, they are, I think, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to stimulate our five senses. The senses that excites us the most, especially taste, right?
Mm.
So mentioning all these things that I've avoided and changed
Mm.
in my cooking and in my lifestyle, I've managed to avoid going to a doctor for 10 years.
Oh wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I do fall ill.
Yes.
I do
Wow, that's
fall
really an
ill.
achievement.
Yeah, in fact, it's a book that I am really struggling to write because there's so much to write about.
Mm.
And it's just to share my experience why I've managed to save so much time in going to doctors' clinics and waiting for my queue number, and saving all that time for my business.
Mm.
It's not a great experience, wasting time. And again,
Yeah.
we mentioned time is our a human being's greatest commodity. You cannot win back time. You,
Yes.
you can lose money and win it back. You can lose your health and fight it back. But once you lose time, it's finished. You can't get it back, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So it saved
especially
me a lot
for
of
those
time.
of us who are in our 40s, I don't know about you, but isn't it true? Like the days just pass so quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time I remembered, I was 35, which was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
time has flown so fast.
Mm.
It's frightening. When
Yeah.
we are busy, things go even faster,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Next thing we know, it's 3 months or almost three months plus of COVID when it started. Right, the
Mm.
emotions are still there when it first started, right? When we had
Mm.
to, yeah, be very careful with what we do.
Mm.
So,
And I don't mean to put a damper on your show, but I thought at this point I also wanted to share something like that's a bit more personal when it comes to
okay,
health. Is that a lot of us, when we are young, we this concept of time, right? We think we have all the time in the world, and we live. We don't really make very conscious decisions in terms of like how we want to live and how that impacts our health, right? Because we
yeah,
just think that, oh, we are still young. So what happened was that a couple of years back, my brother at age 39, only 39, yeah, and he was like a regular bloke, right? I mean, he didn't have any serious health issues. He, yeah, maybe carried a little bit of excess weight, but just out of the blue, he had like very bad headaches and no, dizziness, rather dizziness, not even headaches, yeah. And so he checked himself into A&E. Being the garang person that he was, right, he just kind of like, okay, just took a cab and went into A&E. But sad to say, within a month of different probes and tests and this and that, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which, if you know, right, is sort of like the worst of the brain cancers that you can possibly get.
oh dear,
And unfortunately, yeah, it's like yeah, within a year he was gone. So yeah, and so he passed just after his 40th birthday. So the thing is, like, these days, right, I find that age is no longer even like something to think that time. It's no longer a factor where you think that time is on your side. Life is so unpredictable in that sense. So in fact, after my brother passed, it was really an awakening for me. Yeah, is something that we might not necessarily have whatever age we are at, and hence to live each day with more intention, and really do things that are important to you in this moment, and not just think of like the future, because there might not be that future. yeah. Sorry if I make your show very serious, but yeah,
No,
just wanted to put it out there, you know. Yeah.
I think that is in fact the most important message you have shared in this show, and we truly appreciate that. But
Mm,
first of all, we like to say we're really sorry to hear that of your brother, and our heart goes to him and your family,
yeah.
and our most sincere condolences for that.
Thank you, thank you. But
Um,
actually, I found that because of, I mean, I've already been doing this work of mine for a long time, as I've mentioned. But yeah, after his passing, right, I kind of like felt this drive even more to like get that word out there, like please take care of yourself, you know, whether it's on a physical level, but also mental, emotionally. I think a lot of, because a lot of people ask like, oh, why did that have to happen to my brother, you know? And I think a lot of it also comes back to like the mental emotional stress that people, you know, kind of like take it upon themselves, which somehow or other contributes or manifests as a physical disease. So which is why I always go back to saying that, you know, take care of yourself. You know, self-care is no longer seen as something that's selfish. It's no longer a luxury. It's something actually very essential that, you know, we give ourselves that much so that we can be there for our loved ones. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that is so valuable for
Mm,
people to experience.
mm,
Anyway, for this show is not just my intention to raise awareness and help people get more information from experts like yourself and others. But my next step is also to offer people seminars,
mm,
and
mm.
you are definitely one of my favorites so far. You have
Thank you.
amazing uh, wealth of knowledge. The last person I met was the holistic chef that I worked with. I partnered up in my first cafe.
Mm,
Um, so you have the equivalent of that kind of knowledge, and you're such an asset when it comes to sharing these sort of things. And
thank
you're a
you.
realistic person. You're not a person that says either do it or you die, but you tell people that, hey, we all live balanced lives,
Mm,
and we can find answers if we want to change our lives. It's just about the right kind of mindset, the right
mm,
sort of decision making, and it's not that hard. We
mm.
can adapt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same as my
Little
habits of,
steps.
yeah, baby
Yeah.
steps, right? Like climbing the
Yeah.
mountain to the top. Although it's
Mm,
Mount Everest, but if you take one step at a time and you're very careful with each step, and you don't fall or get too aggressive with your movements, then over time you will get there, no matter how
mm.
hard it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
never say negative things. That's another topic we should be talking about next time.
Yeah.
Self affirmation.
Yes, yes, yes,
People always say,
absolutely.
yeah, they say things like, I cannot do this. I'm born with that. My parents say I'm like this. That's all just subliminal messaging. And to
Mm,
relate to
mm.
subliminal messaging, right, or self affirmation,
Yeah.
I grew up believing that there's a certain toothpaste I have to go for when I enter the supermarket. There's a certain milk I have to buy when I go there. There's a certain cereal I have to grab when I'm there, or sugar, or whatever else, right? Or
Mm, mm,
cigarettes. I used to smoke till I was 28,
mm.
from 18 to 28, and that
Oh.
that is another topic altogether, because our minds are very special. We have the conscious and the subconscious mind, right?
Mm, mm,
So the one that we always gets exposed to will quietly sit in our subconscious mind.
mm,
So I when I was teaching fitness classes before, I always tell people, hey, when you go to the supermarket, what is the first toothpaste you grab? And then they say the brand, right? And so on and so forth. The brand of the sugar, the brand of the mushroom or whatever. And I say,
mm.
why do you think you do that, rather than finding out what are the better sources that are not heavily commercialized and heavily advertised?
Yeah.
They say they don't know. So I say it's all about uh, advertising and subliminal. Every big company has a very strong group of psychologists that
Mm.
teaches them the way to market. So in
Yeah.
fact, behind every marketing uh, intention, there is a lot of psychology behind it. Again, that's another topic we should talk about in the future. So interesting, right? It's
Yes,
mindset
absolutely.
is everything. Our heart and our mind is really everything.
Mm,
So
mm.
no, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
what are the dangers of indulging in too much of certain foods, right? Like fried foods or what, that are prepared outside. Of course, we don't mention names, but
Mm,
we'll just talk about that. Because some people think that they can have too much of something and,
mm.
nothing will happen to them. So what are the things that you should really avoid having too much of that can cause serious damage to their system?
Mm, okay, as we've already mentioned, I think like sugar is definitely, the number one thing. I think even much more than fat. So, yeah, because as I've mentioned, it is really okay. The amounts that we are eating, I just did like a live show on this topic a couple of days back, and I found the research shows that the amounts of uh, current intake of fructose is 700 times more than the recommended amounts.
Oh my
So you can
gosh.
only imagine, right? Yeah. So like somebody in the early 1700s was having like close to like no sugar at all in their in daily intake of food, whereas average person now would be having something like 80 kilograms per year.
Mm,
Yeah. So I often tell people it's like okay, and that's just like a few hundred years difference, whereas like compared to like the whole evolution of like the human species, right, like which could have been millions. So the thing is, how much do you think our physical bodies has really evolved to be able to tolerate that amount of sugar that is coming into our system? Probably not a lot, right? I mean, it's still pretty much the same organs and things that have to you know capacity organ capacity that has to work with that amount that's coming in. And if it's not able to keep up, then of course it is bound to lead to certain health issues, right? So for example, I think cellular aging, which is why if you find right that a lot of these so-called processed foods that we eat, not only are they or like the trans fats and stuff like that, right? Not only are they not topping up our nutritional gap, but they are causing more deficiencies because they actually take more out of our bodies in order to metabolize these so-called the preservatives or the artificial ingredients that are coming in along with the actual foods, right? That our body has to work harder to just get rid of them. And hence not only are they not topping up our nutrient needs, they are actually causing a deficit little by little, such
yeah.
that our cells are aging faster and faster. And the result of that basically is that we are getting diseases at a much younger and younger age. So in my clinic I see a lot of people in their late 30s onwards coming to me, unfortunately, as like my brother with cancer, breast cancer. I have a lot of clients, female client 30s already presenting with breast cancer. um, and then of course diabetes, heart issues. These are all kind of like no longer a shock when somebody in their 30s or 40s present with it, whereas like sort of like when we were growing up, it was like a condition that at least would only happen in somebody who in their 50s or 60s. So it's just through one generation that you can see that this is happening so much earlier, right? That I don't think it's got something to do with the body's, way that it was built, but rather what are we doing to it that is causing this to happen so rapidly. So yeah, I think it has definitely a lot to do with the diets, the kind of like refined foods that a lot of us are indulging in these days, and not eating that much of your fresh, wholesome ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so true.
Mm,
We could talk. You call it. We could talk till the cows come home, right? This
mm,
is such an interesting topic, with a myriad of other things that are related to it. And
mm.
me and Tiffany can talk about this for 6 hours,
Definitely. Yes.
like a full shift if you want us to. However,
Yeah.
we should really, just uh, narrow down to very good points that Tiffany has mentioned, and it's such a valuable session today because I've also being reminded of certain things that I should be more careful about as well, not just about things, and there are also new things that I've learned about. So thank you, Tiffany. This has been
Thank you.
so wonderful so far. Um, and I also think that um, to be fair to yourself and people as well, So from now on, rather than me asking a question, right?
Mm.
Do you have any other advice for people that you feel, what you see around Singapore and what you see is happening? What sort of advice would you want to really give them for them to either get started or just live a life that is just more balanced and
Mm.
just stay happy?
Okay.
What would you say?
Alright. Okay, so I will say first from a very practical point of view, yeah, because this is like another big topic, uh, when it comes to like the way that I usually treat my clients, so I might as well share with your audience as well, is
Right.
that I do use supplementation. So I have like different schools of thought when it. I mean, my clients have different school of thought when they come and see me. In terms of like some just wanted to change their diet. So I tell them, okay, it is not that food is not good, right? But the quality of food these days, unfortunately, as we've already discussed, is not what it used to be. And because I think the stress upon us these days is much higher. So it comes back to what I was saying just prior to your this question, was that because that nutritional gap unfortunately is getting wider and wider. One quick way that we can quickly fill up that gap is to use something very basic like a multivitamin, right? Like a good quality one, just to ensure that all your basic nutritional needs are met. Because as you know, right, if your nutrients are depleted, you will start to see symptoms, whether it's just fatigue, whether you find that you have a brain fog. So it starts to affect different aspects of your life. And for example, if you are missing something very basic like a magnesium, right, which apparently a lot of people are actually deficient in these days. Magnesium is actually a muscular and nervous relaxant. So even something as basic as that, if you are missing out on that, you will find that you are just sort of like your mood is affected. You're not as chirpy or like as calm as you could possibly be. So I think that practically, there are still certain nutrients that would be very useful whether you actually have a disease condition or not, like a probiotics, like a multivitamin, like a omega-3 fatty acid, just to keep inflammation at bay. Because unfortunately, our modern day lifestyle, our modern day diets are just the way it is, right? It is very hard to avoid inflammation and stress and all of these, yeah. So I would say on a practical level, consider supplementation. Having said that, there is a vast degree of quality. So I would say if you can do a bit of research and look into a better quality one. And one safe way to do that is, of course, to get a practitioner, one from people like such as myself. So that's more on a practical level. I think, like no matter how good or how well you try to eat, yeah, supplementation would be useful for present day needs. The other thing, as I've already mentioned a few times throughout the show, is to look at your health and well-being not just from a physical standpoint, but look at yourself from a holistic mind, body, spirit sort of way. Because if one of these was to be deficient, I think it would definitely kind of like affect the other. So whilst we take care of our physical bodies, make sure that you're also doing things to always calm your mental emotional aspect of your well-being too. So that, yeah, I think overall you're able to kind of like do your work to the best of your abilities, if you are composed in all that three aspects.
Yeah, that is so good, Tiffany. It's so good to hear all that advice from you. Um, to be very honest, and to share with the audience as well, my businesses are very stressful because we have a small team, and every day is a challenge because we have something that just comes by. So if I were to follow my emotions, I wouldn't do this talk show because I'm terribly busy almost all day. I can be very busy until I don't even sleep. There was a night, remember I shared with you, I slept at like 2 a.m.
Yeah.
because I
Yes.
really pushed myself, but I didn't feel good the next day because my timing for sleep and waking up just goes out of whack.
Mm-mm.
But I want to do this talk show because I really felt that, during COVID-19, everything went online. So a light bulb went to my head and say, hey, rather than just me trying to share some, basic workouts, I call it the 7 floor fitness workout, so that people can do it at home. Let's do something else and share all these resources from people that, now I call them my dear friends, because they have so much knowledge to share. And awareness is a kickstart to every first action, right? You know about it, you're more aware about it, then what's next? So it's so powerful. So yes, I did buy order some really good vitamin C from Tiffany.
Oh yes.
I am taking much more Nuzes nowadays.
Yeah, the Good Green Vitality, they just renamed it.
Yeah, so definitely
Yeah.
that as well, because I could feel it when I even eat as healthy as I can at home. I just don't feel that I'm pumped up with enough nutrients. And it's so true what you said. We definitely need those. For a car they call it certain lubricants or some kind of special, rather than just petroleum, right? The car also needs some additional oils and stuff to get it fully functional. So I definitely need that. And this is a funny thing. I have a neighbor that screams at his children maybe once or twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. He screams at them really loud, and it's across the block, and I can hear it. So I think
Across
he
the
needs,
block.
and I think he's got a anger management issue, and I think he needs more magnesium.
That's right.
So I probably
Yeah.
recommend, put a poster there and say, you need more magnesium to manage your temper, my friend.
Yeah.
But I think we've been fed with so much information today. It's just so good to advise you, those listeners, to reach out to Tiffany, at least
Thank
to
you.
get some more information about how you can actually kickstart your health and even your mindset. I mean, look at her. She's 44 years young, and she looks 32, right?
Wow. Okay. I'm buying you dinner.
So I think you also have a show. You just started a show called Self Care Sunday, and I've
Yes,
watched a few of
yes.
those shows, and I think it's fascinating. What I'll do is I'll add the link.
Oh, thank you so much. Common health topics on like bone health, on like weight and yeah, like sugar and all that people would be interested in. So those are some of the big things that I share on typically. And kids health also, because a lot of people ask me about how I can boost my kids health or immunity. So those are common things, yeah,
Yeah.
that I
So
share.
remembered. I don't know if you remember, we invited you to become one of our speakers for our
Oh yes,
Singapore
for your
camp, right?
kids camp. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
then I guess it didn't happen because it's new for us, and we probably marketed it a little bit too late. But I was thinking, there are some companies who have approached me, corporate companies that say that they want certain things like a fitness class online or whatever. So this gave me a good idea that maybe I can introduce you as a speaker on Zoom. That these people in the companies can actually ask you questions straight up when it comes to living a more vibrant life. I will call it in short. And this can be very helpful for them. I think you have this wealth of knowledge that people should really listen. You can relate to those people who are very concerned about what do they need and what are the next steps. So I'll probably arrange that for you. We can talk about that on the side.
Okay.
And you deserve all the recognition. I'm sure you definitely
Thank
deserve all
you.
the
Thank
recognition.
you.
So Tiffany, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what are the channels you would recommend them to watch or find out so that they can get to you directly?
My company is called Mind Body Shine, and
Yeah.
my website is my name actually. So it's www.tiffanywe, that's WEE.com. So
Okay,
I think that
excellent.
would be like a good starting place. And then yeah, I also have my own Instagram account. It's called Mind Body Shine SG. And then on Facebook it's just Mind Body Shine.
Okay, excellent. So they can reach out to you from even outside of Singapore, even all the
Oh
way
yes.
from the US, right?
Yes, yes. So yes, I actually have quite a number of like yeah, clients from overseas, and we just do consultations remotely, which is like very possible these days.
Yeah, that's excellent. Thanks to COVID, we've realized the value of being online as well. The reach
Yes,
can be
actually,
phenomenal.
definitely. Yes.
Yeah, so there's always good in something bad, right? It's always good that comes out from something.
Yeah, I've had to do crash courses in Zoom, in StreamYard, and yeah, I have to thank COVID to kind of like push me to learn those things faster.
Well, with that, we would sadly want to say goodbye, but you know, as I mentioned as well with some of the speakers I had, with Tiffany as well, this will not be the last you hear of her. We'll definitely want to have Tiffany back in the show, or even in a perhaps a live session,
Sure.
with people just attending and just shooting out questions. I think that would be an interesting experience to have as well.
Yeah.
So again, Tiffany, thank you so much for
Thank
this session
you.
today. We are so blessed to have you and really hear out the things that even myself I wanted to share with people. So now with the online presence, we can reach out to more people and help them change their lives one step at a time.
Exactly. Just pause one step at a time. I think is a good starting point.
So again, thank you. We'd love to have you back in our show.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
we will all see you again. Take care. Myself, Bamm Hardie, and my wonderful guest today, Tiffany Wee. We'll see
Thank
you on our
you.
next show. Take care and have a healthy, pauseful day.